What if the most dangerous thing you could do right now isn't taking a risk, but believe in yourself so completely, so unreasonably, so far beyond what the evidence supports, that reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around your conviction? That sounds insane. It is insane. And it is also, when you study the psychology, the neuroscience, and the history of every person who has ever done something the world said was impossible, the only thing that actually works. This is not a video about confidence. Confidence is reasonable. Confidence waits for evidence. Confidence needs feedback to survive. What we are talking about today is something older, something darker, something the reasonable world has spent centuries trying to suppress, because the person who possesses it becomes genuinely difficult to control. This is the psychology of delusional self-belief. And by the end of this video, you will never think about your own potential the same way again. Psychologist Albert Bandura spent decades studying what he called self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to execute the behaviors required to produce specific outcomes. His research produced one of the most counterintuitive findings in the history of behavioral science. The people who achieve the most extraordinary results, in sport, in business, in creative fields, in war, were not the people with the most accurate assessments of their own abilities. They were the people with the most inflated one. Slightly delusional, consistently overestimating what they were capable of, persistently refusing to update their belief downward when the evidence suggested they should. Bandura called this optimistic self-appraisal. The rest of the world calls it delusion. And here is what his research showed. The delusional ones consistently outperformed the accurate ones. Not occasionally, not in specific circumstances, consistently. Because the person who believes they can do something attempts it more frequently, persists longer when it fails, recovers faster from setbacks, and ultimately produces results that the accurately self-assessed person never even attempts. History does not remember the reasonable. It remembers the deranged. Elon Musk announced he would put humans on Mars when his company had produced nothing but explosions. The financial press called him delusional. The aerospace establishment called him dangerous. The rational observers called him a fraud. He kept building. Steve Jobs was removed from the company he founded because his belief in his own vision was considered irrational by the people who surrounded him. He came back. He built the most valuable company in human history. Nikola Tesla, the man whose work powers the modern world, died broke and alone in a New York hotel room after spending decades being dismissed as a brilliant madman who believed in things nobody else could see. He was right about all of it. The pattern is not random. Every person who has ever fundamentally changed something, every inventor, every empire builder, every artist who created something that outlasted their lifetime, believed in themselves before they had any rational reason to. Not after the evidence appeared. Before it. That sequence, belief before evidence, is what the world calls delusion. It is also what the world eventually calls genius. But here is what philosophy and history cannot fully explain. Why does it work? What is actually happening inside the brain of the person who believes beyond reason? Neuroscientist Tali Sharot at University College London spent years studying what she calls the optimism bias, the brain's tendency to predict more positive outcomes than the evidence statistically supports. Her research found that approximately 80% of humans have this bias built in. But the people who achieve extraordinary results have it turned up to a level most scientists initially classified as irrational. Here is the mechanism. When you hold an unwavering belief in a specific outcome, your reticular activating system filters your entire reality through the lens of that belief. It begins flagging every opportunity, every resource, and every connection that could move you toward that outcome, while simultaneously filtering out the evidence that suggests it won't happen. This is not positive thinking. This is neurological programming. Your brain literally reorganizes its perception of reality around what you have decided to be true about yourself. And the stronger the belief, the more aggressively the reorganization happens. Understanding the psychology is one thing, building it is another. This is what we call the mind patterns belief architecture, the four-stage process by which delusional self-belief is constructed deliberately rather than discovered accidentally. Stage 1, the declaration. Not a goal, not an intention, a declaration. There is a neurological difference between saying I want to achieve this and saying this is already mine. The first activates the brain's planning system. The second activates the brain's identity system. And identity is significantly more powerful than planning. When something becomes part of your identity, when you are the person who has already done this rather than the person who is trying to do this, your brain begins defending that identity the way it defends your most fundamental beliefs about yourself. It becomes non-negotiable. Stage 2. The evidence audit. Every delusional belief needs a foundation, not of external proof, but of internal reference points. The moments you succeeded when nobody believed you would. The times you were told you couldn't and did anyway. The skills you built from nothing. The obstacles you survived that should have finished you. Most people dismiss these moments as luck or circumstance. The person building delusional self-belief catalogs them deliberately, because they are the raw material from which the belief is constructed. You are not being irrational. You are building a case for yourself that is as rigorous as any legal argument just argued in your own mind rather than in front of a jury. Stage 3. The pressure test. Delusional self-belief that only survives in comfortable conditions is not delusional self-belief. It is fragile optimism. Real delusional self-belief is forged in the moments when everything suggests you should give up, and you refuse. Not because you are unaware of how bad things are, but because you have decided that the current evidence is irrelevant to the final outcome. This is the stage most people never reach, because it requires you to look at a situation that genuinely looks like failure and declare, I am not finished. Not as a feeling, as a fact. Stage 4. The transmission. The final stage of the mind pattern's belief architecture is the most counterintuitive. Delusional self-belief only reaches its full power when it stops being internal and becomes visible. Not through arrogance, not through performance, through the specific quality of your certainty in every room you enter. The way you speak about what you are building. The way you move when things are difficult. The way you respond to doubt and dismissal. People do not follow logic. They follow certainty. And when your certainty is genuine, when it comes not from performance but from a belief so deeply encoded that it has become part of your identity, it becomes contagious. People begin to believe in your outcome not because the evidence supports it, but because your conviction makes their doubt feel embarrassing. But here is what this video would be dishonest to omit. Delusional self-belief can destroy you. It has destroyed people. Brilliant people. Capable people. People who had everything except the wisdom to know the difference between a belief that bends reality and a belief that simply ignores it. The difference is not in the strength of the belief. It is in whether the belief is accompanied by relentless, disciplined, strategic action. Elon Musk's delusion was accompanied by 18-hour working days, obsessive technical knowledge, and a willingness to learn from every failed rocket. Steve Jobs' delusion was accompanied by a perfectionism so demanding it became legendary. Tesla's delusion was accompanied by a work ethic that produced over 300 patents. The belief without the work is not delusional self-belief. It is fantasy. And fantasy, unlike delusion, does not bend reality. It simply ignores it until reality destroys you. The distinction matters. Because the version of this that works is not I believe, therefore I will receive. It is, I believe, therefore I will build, even when it is painful, even when it is slow, even when the evidence continues to suggest I should stop. Here is the psychological truth that sits underneath everything we have covered today. Most people live inside a story about themselves that someone else wrote. Their parents wrote a chapter. Their failures wrote a chapter. Their environment wrote a chapter. The people who dismissed them wrote a chapter. And they have been living inside that story, acting consistently with it, making decisions bounded by it, measuring their potential against it, without ever questioning whether the story is true. Delusional self-belief is not irrationality. It is the deliberate decision to write your own story, and then to live inside it with such complete commitment that reality begins to conform to the narrative, rather than the other way around. The world will call you delusional. Good, because the word delusional is what people say about a belief that has not yet produced its evidence. And every belief that has ever produced extraordinary evidence was called delusional first. You are not waiting for permission to believe in yourself beyond reason. You never needed it. The declaration was always yours to make. The question was only ever whether you were willing to make it, and then to build everything that follows from that declaration with the same ferocity that you declared it. The world does not remember the reasonable. It does not fear the cautious. It does not follow the uncertain. It does not build monuments to the people who waited for the evidence before they believed. It remembers the ones who decided first, who declared their outcome before it existed, who built their belief before they had a reason to, who refused in the face of every argument, every dismissal, and every rational suggestion to scale back their vision, refused to believe that the current evidence was the final word on what they were capable of. That refusal, that specific, deliberate, psychologically constructed refusal, is what turns delusion into destiny. The mind pattern's belief architecture is not a motivational framework. It is a construction project. The declaration, the evidence audit, the pressure test, the transmission. 4 stages, 1 outcome. A belief so complete, so deeply encoded, so consistently acted upon, that the world eventually stops calling it delusion and starts calling it inevitable. You were never waiting for the world to believe in you. You were waiting to believe in yourself loudly enough that the world had no choice but to agree. Start now. If this changed something in how you see your own potential, share it with someone still waiting for permission to go beyond what is reasonable. Subscribe to Mind Patterns, because this is where we don't chase power, we become it.